So welcome everyone to this episode of Stories for Healing. This began at the end of October, and we're just rolling forward with so many people who've listening to these stories, a supply of storytellers who are really desperate to tell these stories. And I think it's all because we're meeting a need that we all know is there, but didn't maybe quite know what to do about. This feeling of being separated and divided and antagonistic and just plain stressed out in general. Um, as storytellers, particularly those of us who are storytellers who do this for healing and transformation, the obvious thing to do is to tell a story and to try and bring a little bit of healing and reconciliation to the world that way. And as you might know, if you're a storyteller, bring it to ourselves, because telling these stories really is very healing for the storyteller as well. Um, and so we tell these stories. You can find them a new story every weekday, and uh, it's really a wonderful thing. So what I want to do now is invite a very special guest, Lani Peterson, to tell us a story. So Lani, tell us a story.
Thank you, Jim. No way, there is no way you're going to make me do this thing. And that's it. That's it. I'm not doing it. That was the voice of Shadow. And this thing I was trying to get her to do was to stand on a stage on Thursday afternoon and tell a story. And I didn't quite get why she was so resistant to this, and that'd been sort of the understanding all along. It was a tell your story workshop. Shadow was 16 and had been referred to this workshop by her guidance counselor, along with 8 other young girls who had all been in trouble in some way. And rather than choosing disciplinary action, the guidance counselor thought this storytelling workshop might be something that could be helpful to them. We'd been meeting for 6 weeks, and this was the last class before next Thursday, when each of them would be invited to stand on the stage of their school auditorium and just tell a story. But if you think I'm going to stand up there and humiliate myself in front of my friends, in front of my mama, in front of my parole officer, then you got another thing coming. I didn't know what to say. I mean, why now? What's the big deal? What do you mean, what's the big deal? I just told you, I'm not going to do this thing. I'm just not going to do it. And as Shadow went, so the rest of the group went, and I was losing them very quickly. I paused and tried to understand what's going on. And then I realized I could hear the fear underneath Shadow's voice. And I thought, she's confronting me. The best thing to do is just confront her right back. And so I said, so what are you so afraid of? Huh, afraid, she said. What would you know about fear? I bet you've never been afraid a day in your life. Oh, she had me again. What do you mean? Of course I've been afraid. Everybody's been afraid at some time about something. Yeah? Well, what's your thing? So I paused, and well, lots of things. But well, maybe one of the biggest things is I'm afraid of fish. And then she just began to roar. Fish, you're afraid of fish. So yeah, so tell us about your fear of fish, like little goldfish or big sharks, or, what kind of fish are you afraid of? So I told them the story. When I was just 3 years old, I got very sick and I had to go to the hospital. I was actually there for several weeks while they were trying to figure out what was wrong with me. They gave me all kinds of painful tests, and eventually they determined that I had encephalitis, which is an inflammation of the brain. It left me very weak and having all kinds of strange dreams and feeling just very scared and out of control. I slept in a crib on a ward with lots of other kids, and my parents would come in and visit me every day, and they decorated the side of my crib with cards that their friends had been sending. And the one right next to my pillow was a picture of a little goldfish swimming in a bowl. And that's what I looked at every night as I fell asleep. I eventually got better, and we thought it was a full recovery, nothing wrong. But several months later, when we went to visit my grandmother at the beach and my brothers went fishing, they came back with fish on the lines. And as soon as my eyes looked into the dead eyes of those fish, I felt like I couldn't breathe. My heart was racing. I was tears streaming down my cheeks, and I thought I was going to die. Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I feel about standing on the stage and telling my story. So you get it. So you understand why I'm not going to do it. Well, no, I mean, that the whole point is we can't let our fears control us or keeping us from doing things. Well, I'm doing plenty of things. I'm getting out of the house just fine. I just don't plan on standing on that stage and telling my story. Well, you can't let it stop you. And that's when she got real quiet and looked at me and she said, so tell me, when's the last time you held a fish? Oh, I actually have never gotten very close to one. I'm just too afraid. Yeah, she said, you get it. But this is different. This is something that you can do. Yeah, I can do it. But I got an idea. I'll make you a deal. I'll stand up on that stage on Thursday and tell everybody a story if you stand up on that stage right next to me and you hold a fish. I could feel my breath tightening, but it actually seemed like a fair deal. I was asking them to face their fear, so why wouldn't I face mine? It's a deal, I said, and she reached right out and shook my hand. See you Thursday, she said. I'm excited to see your fish. That was one week that went way too fast. Each night I tried to visualize holding a sort of cute little rainbow trout, and each night I fell asleep with inability to breathe and my heart racing. On Thursday at 1:00, 3 hours before showtime, I went out to the local supermarket the first time with the intention of looking for a fish. I went right up to the fish counter and braced myself as I cruised through the cabinet looking for a whole fish and only saw fillets and scallops and shrimp. So I had to get the attention of the man behind the counter. Do you have any whole fish? No, he said, not in season. You'll have to go to the fish store. They might have something. Go to the fish store? More breathing to calm. I drove slowly to the fish store and for the first time opened its door and crossed the sawdust floors up to the counter, keeping my eyes looking just below it, breathing again as I raised my eyes to look at all those fillets and scallops and shrimp, but to mixed emotions, no whole fish. So again, I got the attention of the man behind the counter. I said, excuse me, do you have any good looking, nice whole fish back there? Good looking, he said. What do you mean by good looking? I said, sort of like one that would be nice to hold. Does it matter what kind? I said, no, it doesn't matter what kind, just sort of nice to hold. See what I got. And he went back and looking at my feet, I could hear him return, and slowly I raised my eyes to look into the dead eyes of a 3-foot cod draped over his arms. Will this do? He said. And I screamed and ran out of the fish store into the car, locked the doors, rolled up the windows, and cried. I cried hard because I knew I didn't have it in me. I couldn't do it. And then I had to face Shadow and the girls. I drove slowly to the auditorium, pulled up, walked inside, and they all rushed to me with great excitement. And at first I was confused because I wasn't sure I even recognized them. They had left behind their sweatshirts and their jeans, and they were all dressed in dress slacks and some in skirts. And there was Shadow face to face with me in this beautiful blue dress and matching earrings. She said, "So?" And I said, "So I couldn't do it. I can't hold a fish. So you don't have to do it either. If you don't want to, you don't have to tell a story this afternoon. It's up to you." And then she just started to laugh. She said, "Boy, do you have a problem." But it's your problem, not ours. You got to do your work and we'll do ours. And this is it now. So go get yourself a seat. We got this covered. And then Shadow said, "Come on, girls." And they walked out to the stage. She picked up the microphone and she said, "Hey, everybody, put your eyes up here, because I got something to tell you. You all know me as Shadow, but I want you to know my name is actually Jean Marie. And from now on, I want you to call me Jem, and I'm going to tell you why." And she did. A couple of years later, I checked back in with the guidance counselor to hear how everyone was doing. And as I expected, Jem had continued to step into her power to get clear in who she wanted to be and was making that happen. I had no doubt she would. And that story now happened several years ago, and I need to admit to you that I have still not held a fish. I can hear Jem's voice resonating in my ears. You got work to do, and I admit I do. And anytime now I think I know what another person is experiencing or what their story is, I pause. In my mind, I pick up that metaphorical fish and hold it to restore my perspective, and then just listen, that I might begin to understand what life is like for them.
Oh, thank you. What a beautiful story. And yeah,
I'm
go
still
ahead. Go ahead.
living.
Yeah.
When I'm still living, obviously.
Yes. Wow. So many good things in there. One that occurs to me is that we don't need to be completely healed ourselves to help someone else start to heal. Yeah.
I don't think there's such a thing, Jim, as being completely healed.
I don't either, but I think that's I've heard things like that, like, oh, I can't do that because I've got my own issues. And I think it's our own issues, as you've so wonderfully illustrated, that give us a window into what that's like. Yeah.
Healing is a process, and hopefully our own wounds are the doorways to begin to bring empathy and compassion for another wherever they are. And I
Yeah.
think when we ourselves think we don't have problems or we've healed our own, that's when we get ourselves in trouble. And I'm so grateful to have had teachers like Jem who remind me of my wounds and my fallibility, and at times my insensitivity to understanding and respecting another's process and
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
And I continually need to be snapped back into my ability.
The other part that I really loved was the fish store. I didn't see that coming. I thought, okay, she's either going to get the fish or she's not. It was at that moment earlier on just a minor detail of how the plot was going to run, and clearly there was much more to it than that. And I really did feel that moment with you there as you told it. That was really quite powerful. Thank you.
I told that story recently to a group that was working on transformative stories, and afterwards someone thanked me for not having a neat ending. And I said,
Yeah.
"Well, it doesn't exist." And she said, "Exactly." The message is we all still have our work to do. And when we take responsibility for that and step up, I think
Yeah.
that's when there's hope for all of us to continue that healing process.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you. All right. So, folks, we are at the end of another episode. And now you know why so many people are coming. These are such wonderful stories that are not just a good story to hear, but they really work on us as listeners and, as I mentioned before, as tellers. Um, we have, I am not exaggerating now, over 8,000 people a week who view these stories, and that continues to grow. We have storytellers from literally around the world lined up for 2 more months at least to tell a story as wonderful and as powerful as Lani has just told us. So I want to encourage you to do a few things. Come back and watch the stories you've missed. You can do that here on this page or on the YouTube playlist. Start telling stories to each other and start listening to stories from each other, especially stories with an open heart, as you've heard today, because it's when we open our hearts to hear and tell a story that we really do start to connect with people and get beyond the shoulds and shouldn'ts, but more about what really matters. So thanks again, Stories for Healing. We look forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye.